McDonald's Big Mac. It's more than just another hamburger.
Hi, welcome to McDonald's.
A big and tasty for just $1?
Rebel, I've got the cheeseburgers.
Gotta be losing money on this.
Fast food is the kind of thing just about everyone feels a bit nostalgic for, whether you grew up eating Happy Meals or not. And that's not because the food was ever amazing, but because it used to be fast, fun, and most importantly, cheap. It was always there for you when you needed it, and honestly, that was enough. It had a real spot in our culture. In fact, you couldn't even go a single episode of your favorite TV show without seeing an ad for a $5 footlong or a BK Kids meal. It was practically a part of the show.
Hey, you're gonna give yourself nightmares watching that stuff.
But here's the thing, just like how the dollar menu and those $5 footlongs are now only relics of the past, so is the entire version of fast food that they represented. Over the last 20 years, fast food has slowly but surely drifted away from its original promise of speed and affordability right before our eyes, and into something that for most working class people is honestly starting to feel more like a luxury than a go-to reliable meal. In fact, a recent poll found that nearly 80% of Americans now see fast food as a luxury.
Prices at the Golden Arches and other chains are too rich these days.
Is that all-time high in my opinion?
But that wasn't supposed to happen. Fast food was never supposed to be a luxury, rather it was the alternative to it. So in this video, we're going to dig into this whole mess. We'll examine the key problems of the industry today, and more importantly, try to figure out what or who is really driving them in the first place. Because I want to figure out if this is just another casualty of rising costs in a changing economy, or is there something more deliberate and sinister at play? The concept of fast food first appeared in the early 1950s, built around one defining concept, the Speedee Service System. Developed by Richard and Maurice McDonald, it was a tightly engineered formula that controlled every detail of the cooking process, all in service of three core principles: speed, efficiency, and affordability. And it was no joke. It was like a military operation, and it turned the kitchen into a machine. Precise, relentless, and unbelievably fast.
No. I just ordered. And now it's here.
It allowed them to churn out 15-cent burgers within 30 seconds of ordering and feed a family of 4 in under 1 minute, all for just $1. But Speedee Service was just the beginning of the fast food renaissance, because it didn't just launch McDonald's into the stratosphere, it wrote the entire rule book for the industry. Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, all of them followed the same formula. This is also precisely why it matters to the story we're telling today, because that foundation of fast food's original success has been completely lost in today's mega chains. Not only that, but while you're eating at a fast food restaurant, you might be losing more than you realize. As more and more restaurants and coffee shops offer free Wi-Fi, it is more important than ever to protect your digital life, which is exactly why I've partnered with NordVPN on today's video. Whether you're trying to order food through a delivery app, logging into your bank account, or just trying to stream your favorite shows while traveling, your data is actually exposed. NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro blocks dangerous ads, checks any files you download, and stops you from clicking through to a site with malware. This not only keeps your information safe and secure, but it keeps you from getting scammed online by fake e-commerce stores or phishing sites. So next time you get one of those sketchy emails about a toll payment you need to make, Threat Protection Pro will automatically recognize the scam and warn you about the website, giving you the peace of mind that your information is safe no matter where you are. I personally use NordVPN anytime I'm on a public network. It's safe, reliable, and it's so fast that you don't even notice that it's running in the background. There's a link in the description below, and when you click the link, it not only helps support the channel, but it also gets you 4 months extra on a 2-year plan. And the best part is, it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Thanks again to Nord for sponsoring today's video. Now let's take a look at this chart from Financial Buzz. Since just 2014, prices at McDonald's have more than doubled, rising by over 100% on average. For context, general inflation during that same time period sits at around 35%. So this isn't just a case of prices keeping up with inflation, but instead, fast food costs are completely outpacing it by almost 3 times. Even the classic Big Mac, one of the few items McDonald's purposely keeps relatively low priced, has increased by over 50%, which is way beyond inflation. And while it's easy to pick on McDonald's, this trend is actually everywhere. Wendy's is up over 50%, Chipotle up over 75%, and Taco Bell up a staggering 81%. And this shift isn't just about the prices, because the other core pillar of fast food, the one that's in the industry's name, is also being left in the dust. Back in the 1950s, the average wait time for an order at McDonald's was around 30 seconds. Over the years, however, that slowly increased, and today in 2025, you're now looking at 4 to 5 minutes before getting your burger. That means you're waiting 8 to 10 times longer than your grandparents did for a burger that's more expensive and arguably lower quality, which is pretty wild when you think about it. Now, going back to the big central question of what or who is really behind this shift, we can cross off the inflation argument we touched on earlier because it just doesn't explain the problem. Not only is it mathematically impossible for that to actually be the main driver, but it also doesn't explain the broader breakdown we've seen, like the collapse in speed and efficiency. So what else could be going on?
So what do you think about this? Increasing hourly wages for fast food workers, what kind of an impact has that had on your business?
Well, someone's going to pay for it. Prices are going to go up.
Now, this argument sounds reasonable at first. Wages have gone up over the past decade, and as Chairman Andy puts it, somebody's going to have to pay for it. But just like inflation, rising wages can only explain so much of the problem. Not only have the prices risen way faster than wages, especially at places like McDonald's, but more importantly, we need to understand that higher pay doesn't automatically mean you have to crank prices to absurd levels. Just look at this list of Big Mac prices around the world. Here's the US at $5.69, and there's Denmark charging the same price. But the difference, McDonald's employees in Denmark earn an average of $20 an hour. That's about $7 more than their counterparts in the United States. So it is in fact possible to pay people well without completely gutting your customer at the register. Which means the whole argument that rising wages are the sole reason for rising costs kind of becomes obsolete. But beyond just failing to justify the prices, it also doesn't explain the broader industry breakdown. Higher wages should, at least in theory, motivate employees and boost things like efficiency, not completely destroy it. Which is all what led me to believe there's a deeper issue at play, a more systemic problem, one that CEOs and people high up the chain don't really like to talk about because, well, it has to do with them.
Federal prosecutors hit the former CEO of the company that owns Fatburger and Johnny Rockets with federal charges. They say Andrew Weirdenhorn concealed $47 million from the IRS and dodged millions in taxes.
Wait.
Well, someone's going to pay for it.
You might recognize this guy from earlier. That's the exact same guy who blamed rising wages for everything, which leads us right into what I believe is the real fundamental driving force behind all of this: corporate negligence and greed. Now, I get it. The examples we just saw are some of the more extreme cases with corporate leaders outright defrauding their own companies. But beyond the headline scandals, I'd argue these are just the tip of the iceberg in a much broader industry-wide trend. A shift in focus among the leaders who run the industry. Not only did we lose the speed and budget prices, but they even took the joy out of going to fast food restaurants. A great example to illustrate this and its consequences is to look at how the fast food restaurants themselves have changed. Pizza Hut used to actually look like a real hut. McDonald's was impossible to miss with their loud, bright red and yellow colors. They all invested in playgrounds, ball pits, and little extras that gave the whole place a come hang out kind of vibe. But compare that to today's standard locations, yeah, there's no words really needed. While those pictures alone say 1,000 words, the weirdest part is really the reasoning behind the shift. Because while it's easy to assume this is just another case of quirky, colorful buildings being replaced by something more modern and lifeless, that's really only part of the story. The real reason runs deeper. It comes down to a more fundamental aspect of how these mega chain business models work and how they actually make money today. Because they're not just in the burger business anymore. Let's look at McDonald's again. Did you know they own 70% of the buildings their burgers are sold in and 45% of the land those buildings sit on, which means they essentially operate two different businesses that each allow for the other to exist. One business sells burgers to us, and the other is a real estate empire worth billions of dollars and collecting rent from franchise owners across the globe. From a purely financial standpoint, this was and still is a brilliant strategy. So brilliant, in fact, that McDonald's now brings in more revenue from their real real estate operations than they do flipping burgers. But here's the thing, as McDonald's has increasingly focused on real estate and cutting any other cost, they've let the core business that we as consumers experience to melt away. Those brightly colored buildings with ball pits and play sets aren't easy to sell or rent out to new businesses if that McDonald's location doesn't work out. So they made them minimal gray boxes to flip quickly if things didn't go to plan. Because from a real estate perspective, those designs are simply more practical and cheaper to build. But the paint on the walls isn't the only thing affected by McDonald's focus on real estate. Because just think about it. When the main focus is on keeping the cash rolling in, and most of that comes from rent or ground leases, things like pricing, speed, and customer experience start to matter less and less. But what happens next? How far will this go before the corporate food chains have to make a change? Because while the state of fast food today isn't exactly pretty, there's at least one sign that change might finally be on the horizon. See, up until now, the big chains have mostly gotten away with it. They've coasted on old reputations, kept up a glossy facade, and pushed the burden of rising prices and declining quality onto consumers, all without facing much pushback. But now, that strategy finally looks like it's starting to fall apart. Prices have gone up everywhere, and customers are getting tired of the fast, cheap dinner options becoming a luxury night out that you can only enjoy about once a month. But more importantly, a lot of those customers are starting to take action and shifting towards fast casual spots that at least offer a little bit more quality for the price you're paying, like Shake Shack or Sweetgreen. Or they're just skipping eating out altogether and cooking at home. This pullback is bigger than ever, and it's only growing. And it's finally starting to show in the numbers. McDonald's, for example, has been reporting weak financial earnings for over a year now, with sales declining quarter after quarter. In fact, in Q1 of 2025, they saw their sharpest drop yet, a 3.6% decline in sales. Now, we obviously can't predict exactly how McDonald's will respond to all this, but their options are starting to look pretty simple. Either keep going down this same path, hoping real estate revenue can make up for steeper and steeper drops in food sales, or feel the pressure, make a real pivot, and hope that the public is willing to welcome them back. Either way, it's finally going to be the corporate teams who have to face the consequences too. If you found this video interesting, you'll probably want to check out this video about capitalism destroying online dating. Because just like the fast food industry, it's another thing that's quietly spiraled out of control over the past few decades.